Welcome to another edition of On the Spot with me, Edward Mumbu. Our guest today is Honorable Bernadus Swartbooi, the leader and chief change campaigner of the Landless People's Movement. Welcome to the show, Mr. Swartbooi.
Good day, and thank you for having me here.
Okay, now maybe to start with Mr. Swartbooi, since the inception of the Landless People's Movement, when you reflect and look back now, what is that one single most biggest achievement thus far?
Voice. Voice that is an alternative that this country never had. If you follow our inputs in the National Assembly, in the National Council, if you follow our trajectory in terms of the work that we do at local and regional council, that voice, which is an alternative in terms of the legal framework that we want, the policy framework that we want, the programmatic framework that we want, the projects we want for the people, that's the big difference.
That's what you've brought to the table.
Yes.
Okay, now maybe to the word land in the name, names must have meaning.
Yes.
As far as the land question, really, when you look back again, how is this fight for restorative justice, how are you addressing the land question amidst all the difficulties that confront you as a party?
When you look at the post-colonial African space around what countries have done with the land question, there are very few success stories that you can point to that have been revolutionary, that has actually ensured that either the people own the land or the state declares that the land belongs to the state as a whole, and therefore the state, having overall control of the land, will give land to people in ways and measures that they determine. So the land question, therefore, fundamentally in this continent is also a question that has to do with our economic strength as a continent and the continued new colonial approach that the Western world that colonized us yesteryear still has in respect of this continent. In other words, if you want to have a radical approach on the land question, you already know that your country will be destabilized, governments will be removed, and therefore most governments have opted to have an incremental approach. And so it's important that we understand that important context of what happened in Zimbabwe and why the West is still sanctioning Zimbabwe, why South African land reform, not just as a government policy, but as a measure of the class that owns land, has strength versus government and all others. Those things are quite clearly visible in how other governments approach the land question. Countries like Mozambique have had a slightly different approach to the land, where they nationalized all of it. Countries like Tanzania have done it again along the same lines as Mozambique has done. And when you look at the model of Zimbabwe, the productive capacity of the land that was taken is subject to question. So that context is an important context within which we, without being in government at national level, have to speak and look at the question, or speak about and look at the question of land. If I can tell you now that very little has changed in the land question, you may be surprised. This year, we are told that the land bill will be brought by the Minister of Land and Agriculture for Parliament to debate, hopefully, a new approach to the land question. And the land question is at least three-legged for us. It's land for commercial purposes, for commercial agriculture, it's land for urban settlement, and it's land for mineral access. And the one of mineral access is the least talked about, which is connected actually to ancestral land. If you look at B2 Gold, and if you look at Karibib gold mines, these mines are on ancestral lands of specific communities, but are not even paying royalties to those communities, nor do they give shareholders to those communities, nor do they give any business opportunity specifically targeting those communities, either in Karibib or in Chivarango, or communities in and around Oranienmoond or Luderitz, or around Arandas and that area. And so it is a much more fundamental question than giving land and settling a person. That aspect of settling a person is one, so that a person can have an address, a 400 or 500 square meters land in an urban area. That is an important dimension, and here a lot of young people and young professionals are suffering because of inaccessibility of land. And the second question is then that of somebody getting access to agricultural land to farm productively on that land with the necessary support. In that score, this government still has not made a single transformative decision since we started to talk about the issue, or since the start of the resettlement program, or since the advent of their new proposals that they have now as a result of the land conference apparently included in the bill. Nothing has really moved in terms of the land question. That's why in the areas where we are governing, starting this weekend, we are handing over urban land to a lot of young people, even when that land is unserved. So in places like Gibeon, places like Marintal, in places like Keetmanshoop, we are starting this weekend beginning to hand over land unserviced, even if they do not have the money to build their own house. We are giving people land. In Marintal, we will be giving 700 plots to the local people of that area. In Gibeon, we'll be giving about 200. In Keetmanshoop, we'll be giving around 360 pieces of land for young people, for working women, for single mothers, and for those that have been on lists from the year 2000 that were never able to get land because of policies that are prohibitive. For instance, in this country, you can't give urban land if it has not been serviced. How long will it take to service land in this country? How long will people have to wait for service land? And we're saying we are going to wait for that. We'll give you a piece of land. You will get a piece of paper. That land will belong to you. You will have security over that land. Once you have the necessary resources, you can start building. Once the state institutions have the necessary resources, they will bring the services, but you want to sit with a piece of land.
Okay. But we'll get into that discussion as we go. But yeah, from LPM, from an LPM perspective, next year we head into another election, of course. Will LPM have a congress of some sort to perhaps determine the leadership and who their presidential candidate will be? I remember the last time you had a convention was just your founding convention. I think it was in 2019 when you were formed, and where you were also endorsed as the leader and chief change campaigner.
No, sure. Our second People's Assembly will be held in December this year, which will mark the 5th anniversary of the Landless People's Movement as an important and alternative political platform in this country. But it will be preceded by a policy conference where we want to interrogate what our positions will be in respect of education, healthcare, fourth industrial revolution, agriculture, and so on. And we have therefore already set up a policy unit that is meticulously working on these policies. And we will not have all the answers about every area of policy in this country, but we want to have a set of basic policies that will inform the core areas in which we think this country needs to pivot forward and transition to a higher level of economic and social development output. Subsequent to the policy conference, we'll then have the People's Assembly, where we will make a determination whether the founding period will still have to continue, because we are, in terms of our constitution, still in the founding phase. And the provision is that once we are convinced that not all structures are put in place, that there are areas where the party still needs to be strengthened and consolidated, that can only be done in a founding phase. And therefore we are careful to abruptly end a founding phase of an important mass-based movement as LPM, and to rush to think that we are now solid at every level. So the likelihood is that the founding phase will be expanded for another 5 years. That has important implications for how the party will be managed, because the founding phase essentially makes the founding executive the central organ that must chart the direction of the party. And we will not be rushing to try to impress people with a broader approach in which everybody is up for election for everything in the party, precisely because in order to safeguard democracy, you must safeguard a baby that has been born yesterday, allow it to crawl, allow it to start to walk slowly, and allow it to actually to walk with the necessary stability and with the necessary means. So we have the People's Assembly planned, which will endorse, hopefully, the results of the policy conference, which will help to craft the manifesto, and subsequent to that, elect the convention, which is the equivalent of the Central Committee. Once we have the Central Committee, we will then also have the ability to elect other structures within the various organs of the institution. Remember, we are working with the young people, the youth command element. We have the women. We also have the Council of the Wise. All of those structures need to be consolidated, need to be expanded, need to be strengthened, and we are taking the party building process quite meticulously and very deliberately and consistently to ensure that we do not rush any phase of the party's development and sit with difficulties in which people are not sufficiently ready for politics. I mean, even right now, we are facing a by-election of a councillor who is a member of the party, who never really deeply understood the values, the organizational principles, and the political posture and the vision of the party. When he got elected, this person's little head ballooned out of context, and he began to personalize the position and the assignment that the party has been given by society in Cape Mazub rural constituency, and thought that he's more important than the party. And every little thing that he does, under the guidance of the party, he began to say, it's him. These are the challenges that you have.
Yeah,
with political parties.
Yeah, but let me because
let me just finish this. I know you will probably like to come to this issue.
Yeah.
With political parties that are coming up, in which at certain stages of a country's democracy, people end up hunting for opportunities for positions of power because they could not succeed in other areas of their lives. And politics becomes for many the shortcut to prosperity instead of service to the people, and instead of reminding yourself that politics is a team effort. It's a team effort, it's a collective effort, so that the collective of society can be transformed. And so with that type of content, armed with these types of experiences, our People's Assembly will be a very deliberate and a very serious encounter with realities
So
that the country and the party faces.
one thing we can say without doubt is the likelihood is that you will still be LPM's presidential candidate next year. Maybe let's just take that one out.
Well, that could be a likelihood.
That's the likelihood.
Yes.
Okay. Now, to tackle the issue of your councillor in that you just spoke about now, there's this perception that in the LPM, when you disagree with you, Swartbooi, or your second in command, then this person must go. So it's either the Swartbooi way or the highway in the LPM.
Where did you assess on what scientific basis did you assess that there is a perception that even exists?
This is the general perception by your critics, by those who
critics are critics. There will always be critics.
By those whom you have fired, whether it's in Marienthal, whether it's even the current Mr. Is it Gerrit Vetboy?
Somebody like that. Yes.
Yeah, that's the current narrative that is also driving.
Okay.
To say no, the only reason why I'm being victimized is because I stood up to the might of Swartbooi.
And what was that? If he articulates, or any of those critics articulate that they have disagreed with me, on what is it that they have disagreed with me? Number one. And secondly, this party has grown so big that there is no element of disagreeing, and the disagreement is exclusively with Swartbooi. Never. The party has organs. It has structures, local structures, regional structures. It has neighborhood structures. It has 2 government authorities that it leads in 2 regions. It has a multiplicity of local authorities that it is leading, and it is in voting, joint voting agreements with other political parties in other areas of the country, from Otavi to Korikas to Okakarara and so on and so forth, in Kowabas and so on. When you disagree, this party has such experience of people that come from SWAPO, where the principle of democratic centralism was abused to the absolute, that if you disagreed, you are ostracized. You are already systematically sidelined from association, from assignments, that you are made to feel that you no longer belong here. That's where we come from. When we started this party, those types of political gimmicks are the types of things that we have deliberately said we don't want in LP. And perhaps because this party is so open, and perhaps precisely because myself and the deputy and the operative secretary and all the structures of the party actually sit down and engage people and say, articulate your views and provide evidence. Often, some of those critics are unable to provide evidence for taking up a position. Because we are saying we must be scientific in our opinions that we have. You can't engage in politics and in pedestrian politics in particular and think that you can solve problems of society. So our investment in leadership development, in organizational building, has very, very significant approaches in relation to how you qualify and quantify your opinion. And therefore, if your opinion is scientifically and evidence oriented, scientifically based and evidence oriented, why would your opinion not carry the day? But if there is another opinion that counters you effectively and your opinion does not carry the day, nobody will ostracize you. Nobody. Some of the people that you say, Marintal, that we fired, never even had a single disagreement with me on anything. One of them just left one day and said, what happened here? Apparently I said certain things about it. The other two have completely not wanted to work with colleagues. And so what is important, whether it's critics or party members, is what we underline. If you want to build a party that is strong enough to lead society, the first value is discipline and cohesion. Party discipline and cohesion is not a top-down thing. It's a horizontal responsibility of all of us. It is not a vertical one. I have to be disciplined as leader of the party. I have to submit myself to the will of the collective of the leadership of the party. And so those that peddle this thinking that I am in particular as a person very dictatorial, they would keep on saying those things without telling people what it is that they have done. This councillor that you speak about, we have asked him, in Kwes and in Arwa, the entire communal or the entire communities there do not even have access to land. When I was governor, I was fighting for this thing, that the state purchases huge tracts of land so that people in Kwes who are bound only to municipal land can have areas wider than the municipal land where they can keep livestock and begin to earn some sort of income. He has failed to do that. He has not even made it an issue. He has refused to engage in that process. The same with Arwa. If you go to Arwa and Kwes, people with a few goats are bound up in local authority land that they must pay every month and that they cannot sometimes afford, but that is beginning to be overcrowded. We said also in Arwa, can we push the government so that we purchase at least 10, 15,000 hectares of land, 3 or 4 farms, and that we can give people an opportunity to communally access land, like everywhere in the country. This person has refused to be there. This person, when in Arwa, since independence, no resident of that place could build his little kaya. Yet Arwa is celebrated as one of the best managed towns or villages. But at what cost? When I was governor there already, I said, the figures that you balance here are not in accordance with the human rights that we are abandoning on the ground in Arwa. In Arwa, you cannot live if you do not have a brick house. That has been the culture. And we have said, How many people have jobs that they can afford a brick house? How many people, in actual fact, really need land? And so a bunch of 80 community members identified a piece of land under the leadership of LPM and said, we demarcate this land, we will occupy this land. The local authorities, a coalition of PDM and SWAPO, refused to accede to the demand of people, a very legitimate demand of people. The ministry supported that people need a piece of land. 80 people went and occupied a piece of land, began to demarcate it, and started to put up sheds, led by LPM. This councillor condemned that and said, this is exactly what we do not want. So do you begin to see the fundamental differences in respect of the mandate and the genesis of this party is being breached by a person, whoever that person is. And you would then expect that person to come and say, why is it that your opinion on this matter is different from what we would have thought? Let's discuss, let's engage. When people are unable to engage and convince the leadership and the membership, they begin to say, Swartbooi is a dictator. This current person, we have had interventions. We have sent elders. We have sent a number of councillors. We have sent delegations of young people that he was working with to say, can this colleague please desist from...
wanted to rehabilitate him.
Which was an impossibility. Because when somebody's head grows disproportionate, you already begin to see that people behave themselves in a very well-ordered fashion. Only after they get elected do you get to see the real person who he is. Everything he did in Kwes and Arwa, he did for and with SWAPO members, exclusively. We went down to the community to sit down and say, how do we rehabilitate this person, despite him saying so many things about the party? The elders, the leadership of the structures of the party there said, recall this person. We went to Arwa, we did the same. We went to Kitmanso, people said, this person is overlooking us. I hear now some people are saying Swartbooi is a dictator and so on and so forth, because they have nothing else to say. Any person who is in a position of leadership must maintain discipline, and there must be an enforcer of discipline. Otherwise, you can just go and deregister a party. And nobody is bigger than the constitution, the values, the political program, and the brand of the party. Nobody is bigger than that. So those critics are part of them, supported by SWAPO, who discredit us. We know them. They are paid by intelligence. They are paid as police reserves. Some of these colleagues that are spreading these false rumors have wanted to gain access to tenders in places like Marinta, using SWAPO people for them to be paid off. In other words, most of these people that we let go as a party, first, a multitude of engagement to try to rehabilitate, to try to talk, to try to encourage, sometimes even begging them, please don't go this route, please stick to this, please do this. Begging. People don't see that every day. People just don't see how we engage people. We then said that, but look, this is enough now. We now leave you to determine your own destiny. We will now not be engaging you, because at times we realize that when you keep on engaging somebody, then you start to grow a disproportional sense of power and authority over everyone else. We told them there is no way that LPM will allow the exact practices that SWAPO did, but now this time under the banner of the orange. There are councillors that we let go. 2 months after they became local authority councillors, some of them in Kitmanso, they started to buy with cash plots to build flats, cash apparently on their own names, $200,000, and we're saying your income working for government is at this level. How could you buy this cash property? Can you show us either a bank loan or savings that you have accumulated throughout the years? They couldn't. We said, here is a problem. So some of these people that we let go, we saw tendencies of corruption, tendencies of self-enrichment, tendencies of wanting to work alone with SWAPO administrators to perpetuate the administrative and financial malpractices, either in Keetmanshoop or in this case, in Karas Regional Council, where some of these councillors were owned by administrative staff in Cape Karas Regional Council. So this thing of this councillor burning the flag could not be acceptable, but we are going to teach. We are going to teach people the principles of party discipline, the principle of genuinely serving people at all times, and not beginning to subsume yourself as an individualized character in a position where you are elected on behalf of party. And that's why this person is standing as an independent candidate, because he cannot play as a team person.
But maybe briefly, why was the former operative secretary, Mr. Edson Isaacs, why was he removed from that position? Because the back talk again is also that there are certain issues on which he also disagreed with you on how you were running the party.
What are those? Can you highlight those for me? Because he never shared any of that sort of.
Why was he removed?
Well, first, let me ask you, what is it that he disagreed with me? What is it? Because we have a very deliberative political party, and you or anyone else that is outside a political party often do not understand how political parties work. My brother, we sit and talk. We talk, then we adjourn, and we talk tomorrow so that we can reach a consensus. That's how we lead. You and others perhaps have this perception of a person in parliament that is conducting himself or in a particular way, a person that is conducting himself in a particular way in public. When you lead a political party, the first responsibility you have as a leader is to keep the team together. That is the first responsibility, not your ego, not your interest, the team. And if you as a leader at the top do not fundamentally internalize your core responsibility to keep people together, then you should not lead. But it does not mean that from time to time there are those that will fundamentally not want to be part of the common consensus. Those ones that allow themselves either to be misled or allow themselves to be used by other institutions to infiltrate and destroy a party internally, those ones we cannot stay with. We can't. It never has worked, it will never work, and LPM will not be an exception. So any political party, Mumbu.
But can you tell us why he was removed, at least from where you stand?
No, I do not.
Give us the truth from LPM side.
I do not respond and report to you or to the media out there.
Okay.
I respond and reply and have a responsibility to give answers to the structures of LPM.
Okay.
I will not be discussing a person who's a party member here with outsiders, because that person who was operative secretary, the first operative secretary, still is a member of parliament, still is a member of LPM. And therefore, there is a code that I'm sure you will understand that I and any other member who is a part of this party will have to respect to ensure that we do not start to discuss each other on the street.
Okay. Now you have a history with SWAPO, and I just want to draw your attention to last year's SWAPO elective Congress. In the run-up to the Congress, we could see you coming out strongly, especially on the Prime Minister, Sarah Madila, pointing out her incompetence, pointing out her alleged dodgy dealings and all that. But there was little from you on the other candidates, if I may put it that way, whether it's Honorable Shifeta or Nandi Ndaitwa. Perhaps, maybe the question is, do you have a soft spot for Nandi Ndaitwa? Maybe based on your history with SWAP? Or did you have a vested interest in the outcome?
You must understand what you do within a particular context. And that's the challenge that we have with some of the journalists of this country, that they do not apply an analysis scientifically and organically generated to appreciate why certain things are said, why certain things are said in a very particular way. Sarah Gungelo Amadila went down to the south where we are governing and said that nothing is happening where we are governing. That's why we went after her. Recently, Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwa said something similar in Okago. You should have seen yesterday what we did with her in Parliament. So we have no fundamental interest in who leads SWAPO, who takes over there, because there's nothing in that party. There are just a complete bunch of losers, people that have no idea, no plan for this country, a party that cannot even associate itself with the Republic of Namibia by still maintaining a colonial name called Southwest Africa. How do you think such a party that has no association with this country in its name, how do you think that party can fundamentally want to change this country if it cannot even don a new name for itself? That party does not serve the interests of the people, began to kill many Namibians in Lubango, and therefore we don't sit and analyze and support or discredit or have a soft spot for this or that. We don't operate like that. We have found a new home, a new alternative, which is the Landless People's Movement. What we do and say, whether we agree with this one from SWAPO or disagree with the other one from SWAPO, is based on our particular interest at that particular moment, and is connected to the vision that we have for this country, where we will defend the gains that we've made and seek to multiply the gains that we have made to eventually ensure that we take over the entire governance structures of this country and lead society. So there is no soft spot for either Netumbo or any other candidate. There never was, there never will be. When I was in SWAPO, I was a member of SWAPO working on assignments. There was no soft spot for this person or that person. We don't operate on the basis of personalities, even in LPM. That's why a councillor, when he got out of line in LPM, regardless of his position, regardless of a by-election, which is a risky thing, we said, here, personalities don't matter. The principles guide us. And that's where we are, my brother.
Okay. Now, what is your analysis on the diamond sector and how Namibians can, are we really benefiting from these resources that we call ours?
Not really. It's, it is a sector which represents an elite capture and an elite ethnic capture, which, if you carefully look at it, has not even fundamentally created downstream opportunities in this country. You look at NAMDE, it needs government basically to stop taking its royalties of 3% apparently to extend life of mine. It's not an honest company. It's not led by people that have the common decency, NAMDE, to serve first the country and secondly the communities around which the resources are found. The same with Detmarine. Its association, even from a social responsibility position, is more regions other than where the raw material is sourced. And therefore, when you compare where we are as a country in terms of the diamond sector, look at how many years this mineral has been mined, how can we still be at the point where we just export it? How?
Yeah, that brings me to my next question.
Yes.
What needs to happen?
Well, I think you know it and everyone else knows it. You need to start to move toward value addition. What is so complex about value addition? What is so complex? There are other countries that have added value to their diamonds and therefore added more to the tax base, added more employment, added more downstream employment opportunities. But here we are kept by people that have no fundamental interest to ensure that the country has a greater unemployment or employment opportunity for young people and so on. There is not that connection, that fundamental connection and the fundamental love for the people of this country to use those resources to add value and create jobs. And part of it is because the question of loyalty comes at issue. Are the people that are working at NAMDEP at management level more loyal to De Beers or loyal to the people of this country who are the SOCO? And these are the questions that we are seeing, where people end up being more loyal to De Beers because they perceive this as the most powerful conglomerate in respect of diamonds, and the state of Namibia and the people of Namibia must just be followers of De Beers and what it wants. There is a 50-50 agreement versus De Beers and Namibia. It is not at all 50-50. It is not at all 50-50. Royalties, royalties are not even paid to the communities. All of it goes to the state, to the central government. And then they share it among themselves with De Beers. What value has De Beers added to this country? What has it added? So the partnership with De Beers in itself does not try to reorient De Beers to make it understand that you must have a core commitment to the people of this country. But De Beers is allowed to have a commitment to itself, and all it is interested in is to get the raw material, sell it, and maximize on its profit opportunities. If De Beers can start to invest opportunities here, bring its shops and other things that they do in London here, where will the pain be? The diamond doesn't follow the people. People follow the diamond. People will go to wherever the diamond is because of its unique nature. People will come and buy. People will order from London, from Russia, from New York. They will order the diamond, even if the head offices of the production, the value addition, the complete diversification of the product is done in Keetmanshoop or in Oranjemund or in Windhoek. The diamond will always be in demand. But that understanding is not there because they need to ship it out to an obscure terrain where we do not have access to the numbers. That's been the problem.
We are going for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to On the Spot. Our guest today is Bernadus Swartbooi, the Landless People's Movement leader and chief change campaigner. Yeah, now, Mr. Swartbooi, the Namibians in the two southern regions have given you the mandate to rule the South.
Govern.
To govern.
We don't rule, we govern.
Yeah, to govern the South. What have you done for this region, for the communities in this region to really say no, our votes did not really go to waste? And have you done enough to
Mumbu, do you
also
think that
to also
question is educated enough?
to
In 2 years, you are asking, have you done enough?
what have you
I
done?
will obviously answer you, we have not done enough.
Okay.
We
But what
are-
have you done?
Well, quite a lot.
Yeah.
Just a simple thing that we have been very straightforward about. Already in this past 2 years, we have funded young people's tertiary education over a number of 600 young people, over and above what NASFAS funds. That, my brother, is a mammoth responsibility that we have to ensure that our young people who are going to be the cutting edge spears of society are given every opportunity to study. We do this because we do not want the southern campus to be flooded by students in an excessive way, by students from other regions in an exclusive way. Yes, it's a university campus. It is, of course, a national campus, but you want to make sure that that campus has sufficient intake of young people from the region and the regions where they are. So the funding of young people has been very significant. Secondly, as I said, the voice that we have expressed in National Assembly, National Council, is an important voice that nobody can deny nor take away. And that voice has to do with what we get from the ground and how we articulate those things at national level. For instance, one of the big things under very difficult circumstances that we have been able to observe quite very clearly is the extent to which water and electricity bills consume the domestic economy, such that people are even suffering as though they are not working because every bit of cent that they earn goes to water and electricity. We tabled through Honorable Saban a very progressive motion, two actually, one dealing with water and electricity to get a write-off. Those motions were adopted. They will now be deliberated by the Standing Committee. And what we know is that once those motions, as they will be approved, that those motions, once approved, will have a direct impact, not only on those two regions, but on each and every Namibian who is a resident in an urban area, who has sweltering bills that they must pay, both old and outstanding debts and concurrent expenditure that they have to deal with. And so that already tells you how we take what we find on the ground, not only in those two regions, but everywhere in the country, and make it a voice that is unique, and make sure in our articulation, how we structure it, that there is a sensible understanding of what we want and that it gets implemented. And thirdly, what is important is the investment that we have made in beginning to give direction to the local authorities in a particular way to ensure that corruption is curbed. That's very important. You can go to any of those regions and you will see, whether you are a council or an administrator, when you start to get involved in corrupt activities, or when we see semblances of you pivoting toward a corrupt tendency in which you want to benefit yourself at the expense of a party and the community, you will be dealt with. So there is that growing responsibility and sense thereof that we've got to ensure that in these two regions, in the local authorities, we must clean house. And for that reason, we have already dealt with the local authority chief executive officer of Keetmanshoop. We let him go. There is a labor court case on that score. There is more than 8 million of build together money that just cannot be accounted for. There are scores of tenders that people gave each other in particular ways, but when you go and look at the work for which tenders were given, there is no evidence of the work that was done. We let go precisely of the responsibility to ensure that we run clean governance. We let go of the CEO and the finance officer of Karasburg Town Council, where over 3 years, about 10 million from a small place like Karasburg was disappeared by these people that were employed by Swartbooi Party. So we've had to clean ship. We are now moving toward employing many chief executive officers in places like Stambridge, in places like Kalkrant, in places like Maldeheer, moving to Betani and so on, because the system within the administration was such that it got politicized and there was no performance culture to develop the localities where SWAPO was leading. So in as much as we've inherited a mess where there is no accountability, administrative systems are destroyed, the revenue collection of those local authorities are very poor. We have actually begun to even bring in greater measures of revenue collection. In a month's time, Karasburg was for the first time able to collect about 2.6 million from outstanding water and electricity bills where people were allowed by SWAP because of their connections not to pay. And we said we need money. Business people, they need to pay their fair share. People that were given the contractual responsibility to help sell electricity were not able to give account of that electricity. So we are getting the administration of institutions going. We are now able to report that a significant number of small and medium enterprises that were never given opportunities in public procurement in places like Keetmanshoop are now being given and have actually obtained tenders in excess of 6-7 million in subcontracting work. We have been able to create jobs in small places like Stambridge, over 300 jobs in a small place like Stambridge over 2 years already. We have been able to build a small but quite effective vocational training center in Gibeon for the young people who can just walk from their houses and get access to important, applicable, affordable, technical training in hospitality and other areas, funded almost exclusively by the regional council and supported by the Namibia Training Authority. And we have been able to start to ensure that Roads Authority and others can begin to invest in low volume seal urban roads in at least 3 to 4 areas of the two regions, and that project will soon start to kick off. What we've also done is that we have begun to, as I said in Marinda, clear land that will allow 700 plots to be given to our people. We have serviced about 300 plots in Keetmanshoop, and we are beginning to deliver those plots to people. When was the last time that Keetmanshoop residents got a piece of land? Not even when I was governor. That's how bad the situation was. Energy went and built houses. They couldn't actually build houses because of the price prohibitive nature, which was far expensive than they would have wanted. We are now, and there's a project that I started when I was governor, it is now being implemented, a major vocational training center that has been constructed in Keetmanshoop through Africa Development Bank loans and NTA money, where a large number of young people not just from that region, but from Hartap and everywhere, will now be able to access, once that campus is completed, training opportunities in a way that has never been available for them. And so,
Yeah, so while at that also,
why are you disturbing? Well, you've asked me what we have done.
No,
I'm just getting started what we have done.
no, because of time constraints. But I also want to ask you, in the same context of that question, what are the difficulties of actually governing? That's why you've seemingly been butting heads with the Minister of Urban and Rural Development, issues with central government here and there, and also accusing the Swartbooi-led government of stifling your attempts to succeed in terms of governance in the South.
Well, let me just say this before I go to your answer. In terms of rural electrification and in terms of water provision and so on, we have actually rolled out quite a lot in both these two regions like never before. We've even handed over recently 40 ervan at a small place called Klein-Au recently. So we have a footprint that we are trying to make sure that we can perform under very difficult circumstances. But to get back to your question, the challenge that you have, and this was at the start of the negotiation process, where Swartbooi wanted the state structure to be a unified state structure, and others wanted a federal system. When you look back at that process, they tried to give a compromise, and they gave regions. So, right, fine, let's have regions, and then we'll have national council. There will be some semblance of self-governance in the regions. But then they took all the power back to Windhoek, such that the regional authorities don't have real power. But the Act allows them to raise funds through taxes, to raise funds for their own. But the State Finance Act doesn't allow that, while the Regional Councils Act allows that. So the Constitution of the Republic, in which it is stated that we have a unitary state, is one of the major stumbling blocks for any proper development that can be done with the necessary speed. If I can just give you an example, we have investors that sit with 500 million Namibian dollars right now, and have been sitting so for 2 years, to invest that money in Nekerdal Dam irrigation scheme. But you have to get the approvals from Windhoek. There's an investor. State doesn't have money. The investor has cash. The investor is known, already does business in Notre Dame, wants to expand. He says, you give us this piece of land, you tell us what we plant. We'll employ your people, we'll train your people. You don't have money. The water is moving. Let's do this. Let's do this for your people to create jobs and to enhance food self-security, self-sufficiency. They don't do it simply because for us to get that investor and to start to move Nekerdal Dam at a level never seen before in the agricultural sector of this country, the credit will come to LPM, and that's what they're trying to do. But we have been very consistent to fight that matter. We have said to them, we will not give up. If we need to go to court, we'll go to court. And eventually now, the Minister of Agriculture has had a major consultative meeting with our colleagues down there to say the project is now moving. They've now acquired a piece of land, 11,000 hectares, of which 2,000 is actually viable for irrigation, but it is now starting to move. And so we are consistently moving toward that part, not only because the Nekerdal Dam is located in the area, but because we understand very clearly, from an economic standpoint, what needs to be done right now to create jobs immediately. And my brother, no society has developed without developing its agricultural sector as a base and springboard for the development of other sectors. No society. And we are saying, first, Namibians are hungry. They are hungry because they are unemployed. They are unemployed because we don't have the modern industries that this government has been trying to get to this country, and where they have tried to talk about the concept of industrialization, it has never happened. Because you know what? We are a peripheral country. We are a peripheral economy. We are a resource, raw material resource-based country and continent. Nowhere would you find that countries of the core, the Western countries, even China, would come and gladly put up manufacturing sectors of the economy here, even if we are close to ensure that we leapfrog and start to compete with them. Doesn't work like that. You have to demonstrate with the resources that you have that you will first feed your people. That's the most important one. And you feed your people with their own efforts. Create agricultural opportunities, get your irrigation going. With a dam that is to irrigate 5,000 hectares, I tell you, our estimates are that you will not employ less than 35,000 Namibians on a piece of land as large as that. At Osingil, they have about 2,000 hectares of land. There, they're employing over 17 to 25,000 people, specifically when the harvest season comes. That's on 2,000. Double that, and you will get a number not less than 35,000. And we are saying we need jobs right now for the sake of our children and our children's children. On the education front, young people have been thrown away. On the employment front, they've been thrown away. For 30 years, SWAPO has repeated the lie that they will do everything possible to create jobs. They can't create jobs. They don't know how to create jobs. We have an idea. We say start with agriculture, get the Neckartal Dam going, get the green schemes going, get a proper market for our people to sell their goods, and reduce the reliance on South Africa. They don't understand it because you know what? They don't have an economic plan. They don't understand how the economy fundamentally develops in phases, in stages. And so what we are doing is to say that despite the limitations of the state structure in which all finances are controlled by the central government, we have to keep on pushing. We have to keep on fighting. And they are beginning to listen, but it's a day-to-day fight. It would have been good if this country was a federal state, because then people would really have governed themselves and developed themselves at their own pace. All countries in the world, all countries, the only exception perhaps is Singapore and perhaps Rwanda, because they are small countries. But all countries in the world that have developed their economies and their society have been federal or semi-federal, including China. Because you allow local leaders to take decisions, you allow them to take decisions on how they must spend money, and you allow them to enhance economic efficiencies within their regions, within their towns, without the dominance of a powerful and ineffective central government authority overlooking it. And this is the challenge that we have, that as a political party, we are of the view that this country's constitution must be changed, that we have a federal system where people can really govern themselves at the local level within the broader unity of the country. Otherwise,
Can some regions survive?
some regions can survive. You make sure that you have a proper methodology in which the national cake is shared, and that nobody begins to be greedy or begins to be either regionalist in terms of resources. That would mean the end of the country. But to have a federation in which all of us understand that I'm first and foremost a member of Namibian society, and that I will get my piece fairly and squarely, and that those regions and provinces that don't perform get to be punished, and those that perform get to be awarded. In other words, award those that are strong so that society can move forward, and teach, educate, and discipline those that are working quite poorly. There are other areas where you would not ask the questions you're asking me. Ask Oshana, ask SWAPO leader, Kengo, about what they have done in Oshana. He will not be able to articulate. Ask them about Kavango. They will not be able to articulate, because all they do is to give money, and they sit, money gets stolen, nobody gets held accountable, and Namibians, some of them, including you who has been asking the questions, begin to develop perceptions about LPM as being controversial, as being dictatorial, when we are actually strongly imposing our values. And we are saying here, even at the expense of people saying that LPM is unstable, here, when you have corrupt tendencies, when you think you are above all of us, here, we will not allow you. Go to Rwanda. A minister who drinks and drives even his own private car gets fired because the conduct of that minister does not represent the best conduct of a leader in society. That is a value that they have incorporated and internalized deeply in the governance structures of Rwanda and in the society of Rwanda. Even to smoke in Kigali, people will surround you and tell you, what are you doing? You can't smoke and throw things away here in Kigali. We want to keep the city clean because it represents the best of what we have. What can we say after 30 years of Namibia's independence? Is the pass rate in education, does it represent the best of us? Is the performance of government, does it represent the best of us? Does it represent the best of us? And that is why we are saying we are turning a page at the expense of journalists that are not favorable to us, at the expense of people that just want to make us look bad, that we are saying here in LPM, our children must inherit a party where we have instilled discipline to the core, where a government job does not become your own private property, and that you will keep on serving, and where corruption will be dealt on head-on, immediately and publicly if needed.
Before I move on, and this is one of those that actually pops up when people are criticizing you as a leader. And I cannot qualify it because it's not a position that I hold, but I'm obviously not the first person that you'll be hearing this from, that Swartbooi, or even Job Ampanda, or even who, or even Dr. Itula, these leaders that have left SWAPO, there's always this criticism that comes in your direction that says, no, but they were also part of SWAPO. Why are they criticizing the very same institution that they were part of? What did they do when they were in SWAPO? When you sit around the table and you hear somebody advancing such an argument, how do you respond?
I think that's a very stupid argument. It's a very stupid argument because it's not based on a critical analysis. It's not based on an analysis of the class situation in this country. It's not based on an analysis of the current objective conditions of our young people in this country. Just the other day, 3,000 young people went to apply for one job. Should I have been part of a party that cannot create jobs, where I could not speak out as I should have without being ostracized? Should I have been part of a party where people say the check account of every individual who is in government, in other words, the elite, is more important than doing what is right for society? So those of us, at least if I can speak for myself and for Henny and some of us that left, we left out of principle. We stayed for a while in SWAPO. We understood what it stands for. We followed it. We analyzed its programs and its project of post-independent Namibia. We critiqued the project. We did it inside. We innovated ideas to revamp that project at the levels where we were responsible. And when I got appointed as governor, I tried to make regional councils relevant to the local needs and aspirations of people. That is why I would have projects in Ludrats and Oranienburg and Karasburg and Keetmans and Tes and Beersheba, to make these things relevant and to move away from the modicum where the minister speaks, therefore everything happens, the minister doesn't speak, nothing moves. To say that at the local level, you have answers, you have power to transform from the local level upward to do things. When we left out of principle. Why don't those that are making those assertions ask, where has SWAPO improved since we left? And what is the message that we give as an alternative versus what the reality is on the ground and what SWAPO is still not changing in its doing? How much corruption have they fought? Only 2 ministers? Really? We know more than that. How many EDs are in jail? How many of them are put in a proper accountability stream from the procurement board now? Do you think that was clean? Why do they continue to underfund the ACC? What exactly, since we left, has SWAPO changed that they must ask us or believe that we could have done something better in SWAPO? As if they themselves are able to do anything different in SWAPO. They themselves, who say these things that we were in SWAPO, we didn't do much, come to us behind the scenes and tell us how proud they are, how happy they are. These are ministers, deputy ministers, ambassadors, people in the civil sector. They privately come to us asking for help You know how SWAPO is. If we speak, we'll be ostracized. You are the brave ones that left. We are not as brave as you. We have debts. We have an X5 that we must pay. That's what they say. Why don't they concede that some of them are cowards who are driven by the excesses of the beauty of their check account, by their self-sense of importance that they are a CEO or that they are a minister, and therefore they cannot leave it. And why can't they leave it? Because the opportunities outside being CEO, outside being minister, are zero, and they know it, that they collectively have failed to make any opportunity available even for themselves outside. Because life is tough for people outside who are not CEOs, who are not ministers, who are not connected like some of these ones that got tenders. They know it's tough. That's why they are quiet. And they will try to say these things in front of you, but quietly they come to us.
It brings me to my next question.
Please, let's finish.
Yeah, this week, Jock Ampanda announced his presidential aspirations.
That's his issue.
Yeah, there's another presidential candidate, or looking at the opposition, you have your Pandolini Tula, you have your McHenry Venani, you have your Chua Minyangu and others. You have yourself here. Of course, LPM has been on record that you are not forming part of any coalition. Do you still stand by that position?
Yes.
Why?
We were in Windhoek with IPC. Ampanda was in coalition with IPC. Nothing moved. We went in there. Everything we agreed with IPC, they were fighting us. It didn't move. So, in some instances, there is good to be reported with those parties that are working together. In Hobabos, there is good progress between political parties, NODO, LPM, the Ratepayers Association. We are working there well. In other areas, that is not the case. And we will not, as a new political party, allow ourselves to start to accumulate the sins of others by going into coalition. We want to test ourselves, test our policies, test the work that we have done, and see the extent to which Namibians really appreciate and value our brand. That is what any reasonable political leader must do. You build something, and you want to see whether it can carry the luggage before you start also to carry other people's luggage. Because how will people now distinguish? How will they distinguish between who and what you stand for? In none of the discussions that we've had with these colleagues to work together have issues of ideology and political program and economic program come up. We have been the ones trying to say what unifies us. The only thing is we don't want swap. We say that's not enough. What in terms of socio-economic development, in terms of our ideological and economic practical posture should unify us so that when things become difficult, those elements remain what we can remind each other about and say, look, we have this difference here, but our goal and our vision, because of our ideological conversion, because of our political conversion, because of our pragmatic policy conversion, this difference is smaller. Let's not break apart because of this difference. There is nothing of that sort. And we cannot be small children that have no idea about how politics is conducted. Even when you build a political party, it's because you agree on things that people come and they become a member of your political party. It is therefore not natural that you would now want to form a coalition with somebody or some political party where you have no fundamental agreement on anything of significance. And that's what people forget. They just see that you need to get Swartbooi out of office, and therefore all of us here, let's unify. But on what basis? How do we perceive society 20 years from now? What is our focus, focal areas on how to get young people from point A to point B? How do we see our relationship with the rest of the continent? How do we see agrarian reform, land reform? These are the core issues.
But some of your colleagues in the opposition say the only way to remove the Swartbooi-led government is through a coalition. Do you harbor such views?
Those are their views. I don't harbor such views. If your political program is strong, if your ideological posture is appropriate, if your articulation is strong, and if your record is something worthy of Namibians looking at you and saying, out of 10, we give them 5 or maybe 5.5. Let's give them a chance. That's okay. You've got, as a political party, to believe in your ability, out of your political orientation, out of the class struggles and the analysis of the class struggles, and the appropriate responses on those class issues. You have to be able to be confident enough to say, we can, if we stay the course.
You have to believe in yourself.
You have to believe in yourself. We can take over the stuff. If we did not believe that, we could not have won 2 regions. How many political parties have been in this parliament from the 1st to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, until the 7th parliament? They have not even one single municipality that they can call they control. Why is that? Why is that? That they cannot command respect to obtain the votes of people in a local authority or in a regional council. Why is that? You must ask them that question. And now the answer is all of our problems as political parties can be resolved in wanting to remove SWAPO from power by us being united. On what basis? What are the 4 areas or 5 or 6 or 7 areas that will unite us to remove SWAPO? And therefore, this call for coalition without a class-centric agenda and without a class-centric analysis, without a clear ideological and deep critical analysis of society and where we want to position our country in the community of nations, without that analysis, any call for a coalition is simplistic, opportunistic, and uneducated.
From where you stand or sit right now, what will decide the 2024 elections outcome?
What will decide it?
The issues of unemployment, it's the economy, it's populism.
Those things have never changed.
Yeah, when you look at
those things have never changed. You see, unemployment from day one has been the topic. They want industrialization. They want land reform. They want this. They want that. They have so many things on the shopping list as well. They have never had an alternative political voice that can challenge them on all of those things with genuine alternative ideas that the Namibians can buy. What will change it are only 2 things. First, the people of Namibia. Are they not objectively and subjectively, are they not frustrated enough with seeing their children having done well in grade 12, having done well in obtaining their university degrees, but they are still in their living rooms watching television? Are they not frustrated? Are Namibians not frustrated with the lack of opportunities for SME development, for agrarian reform? Are they not frustrated enough with the increasingly poorer and poorer public education sector, which actually, in our view, has collapsed under SWAPO? Are they not frustrated enough? Are they blind to the extent that they will still give SWAPO a chance? That will determine, not the manifestos of political parties, I'm sorry, not the good English of leaders. None of that will determine that. The first thing is, are Namibians not ready for a new leadership in this country? That the nation must answer for itself in 2024. Number 2, if they are frustrated enough, if they are angry enough, righteously angry enough, will they allow the Electoral Commission of Namibia to keep on rigging elections in concert with SWAPO? Will they allow it to happen? Those are the only 2 things that will determine the outcome of the elections. Because from where we sit, SWAPO cannot in any right mind even garner beyond 40% of the vote. It can never. It may have the single largest block of voters, perhaps from the north. But beyond that, even in the north, they cannot command 80%, perhaps 60%. But beyond that, objectively speaking, whether it's the Kavangos, whether it's Zambezi, and the rest of the country, SWAPO no longer commands the respect and the moral high ground that are two important variables over and above its record. It does not command any of that set of important variables to win the day. That is why 117 computers, without any break-in, suddenly disappeared in December, reported in January, but disappeared in December, go finding their own feet probably out of ECN officers. Nobody is suspended. Nobody is fired. There is no disciplinary hearing. There is no report of how far the police investigations are. 117 laptops taken out of ECN to do what? In preparation for 2024. SWAPO is done. But if Namibians still want to give a brand that has destroyed their lives a chance, it is on their conscience. You can have the best manifesto. You can run the best campaign. You can kiss and greet so many people as you want. You can be accessible and go sit and eat with an old granny, any food, and speak to her in a language that she understands. You can do all of it. But if the people of this country are not ready to make a change, it's not on any political party. It's on their conscience.
Lastly, one of the contemporary issues currently is what is LPM's position on the LGBTQ rights and the decriminalization of the sodomy law, one of the issues that is topical, and perhaps maybe if you can really just touch a bit on the genocide issue before we leave.
Well, the genocide issue is in court, so I cannot touch on it.
Okay.
It's subject to We've taken the government to court, and this is one of the things that we told the communities where we were campaigning, that we will take the genocide issue to court to have this government account. We have done that. We have taken people of the highest officers, starting from the president, the attorney general, the prime minister, the cabinet, the speaker of the National Assembly. We have taken them to court. Only LPM has done it. And we're proud about that boldness and that mandate commitment to go that route, not just to scream on the streets, not just to demonstrate, but to test our judiciary, whether they can understand the arguments that we are canvassing. There are very strong arguments about racism and why the Joint Declaration cannot be, in a democratic society, accepted as a way forward to resolve the genocide issue. So there we are fine. In terms of your question on gay and lesbian issues, I referred you to our policy conference. These are some of the issues that we're going to look at, and we'll have a proper response on some of those issues once we have ventilated these issues thoroughly as a political party. So I have my own personal view. I cannot make that a party view, and my personal view can completely be different from the party view, but we will be mature enough to wait for the party to speak thoroughly on this matter and tell the nation where we are.
Bernadus Swartbooi.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief.
All right.